Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margulis, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Robin. Welcome to the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Thursday night, August 21st, 2025, as we record this new episode. The Chicago White Sox had a wonderful month of July. It was very fun to watch as they went 12-13, scoring more runs than they allowed, instilling hope that maybe, just maybe, things are turning around for the organization. Here we are in August, and boy, it's not fun. The White Sox lose another series in Atlanta. They are 45-82 now, which means they have clinched a non-winning season for the fourth straight year, and it is 3 straight losing seasons. In this episode, we will recap what happened in Atlanta, as a growing concern now for the White Sox is that the pitchers are running out of gas. Not great when there's still 35 more games to be played. Speaking of more games to be played, the Minnesota Twins visit the White Sox to kick off a 10-game homestand. Who is the brighter 3-year future? The Twins or the White Sox? In the end, we'll highlight a couple of key series around Major League Baseball as the postseason races continue to be tight, as the Kansas City Royals suddenly have thrusted themselves into the postseason picture. James Fegan is on his way back from Arizona. We sent him down there to chat with the recent MLB draftees for the White Sox. So joining me in this episode is the managing editor of SoxMachine.com. It's Jim Margulis. And hello, Jim. The White Sox lose another series, this time in Atlanta, but what transpired over those 3 games against the Braves, one incredibly high-scoring games, very fun-bad on Monday and Tuesday, and the White Sox lost 1-0 on an unearned run and error by Colson Montgomery to lose that series. For me, the best way I can describe it, it was weird. What do you make of what happened in Atlanta for the White Sox?
It seems like a bullpen failure we've seen plenty of times over the years with bad bullpens, with bullpens that were supposed to be good, in the sense that it's contagious and that you're hoping for somebody to provide like one scoreless, clean, low drama inning, and they just can't do it. And then it just keeps trickling down, and you're using a third pitcher of the inning, and you can just sense the desperation underneath moves. I think it's been a few months since we've had that unfurl in front of us. In April, it was kind of like that, although I think April was maybe a bit faster in terms of how the bullpen collapsed. This was very slow moving, I think partially because they had big leads. So they had lots of innings or lots of batters to have to go through for the other team to accomplish their goal. Whereas like in the first couple months of the season, the White Sox would have a 1-run lead they're desperately clinging to in the 8th, 9th inning. And then all of a sudden, 2-run homer, game's over. And just like that, they've lost the game. This required a lot more batters, a lot more pitches, a lot more pitchers. So it was very much like the Austin Powers steamroller scene of just, no, catch your breath, no, over and over again. You could see it happening, but nothing you can do, either whether you're watching the game or listening to it, as I was for part of it. Listening to the car, getting out of the car, going back in the house, like, oh, inning's still going. Like I was hoping in the 3 to 5 minutes that I was resituating inside the house to get the TV broadcast going, that surely the inning would be over and I would have to rewind to see how it happened. But nope, still an active concern, maybe a new pitcher on the mound. But yeah, just we've seen that before, but just, it does remind you that this bullpen really still doesn't have a hierarchy. in any tested sense of the word. And also either fatigue setting in or just, regression setting in, or just, grind of a first full-time season, like Grant Taylor's case would be one. Steven Wilson was pitching well above his FIP for a lot of the season. So to see him struggling as of late, not a surprise. He got away with a lot of hanging sweepers early on and not getting away with them now. And yeah, it's unfortunate. I guess the good news is that the offense has been providing a lot of cushion, a lot of huge leads that require gargantuan efforts from the Braves to have to surmount. And that's enjoyable in its own right.
And that's what makes the White Sox right now fun bad. I mean, they scored 23 runs in 2 games against Atlanta, and they did get shut out. But 23 runs in a 3-game series, you got to feel great about the offense for the White Sox. It's just, to your point, this feels like a 54-win team for the Chicago White Sox this year, where they win on Monday 13-9, then they lose at a bullpen meltdown, and then they don't score. That's just like the way that the White Sox have been built for the 2025 season.
The Royal Sampler.
Exactly. That's what this week's series against Atlanta was. Because again, the White Sox won 13-9 on Monday, lost 11-10 on Tuesday, and then losing 1-0 on Wednesday. And back to what I mentioned in the intro. So in July, the White Sox went 12-13. They are 5-13 in August. And speaking of the pitching staff, as you mentioned the bullpen, Jim, it does feel like the White Sox pitching is now running on fumes. And that's not a good sign because there's still 35 games left to be played. This could get sideways. This could get uglier real fast for the White Sox. When the White Sox went 5-21 in April, they allowed 128 runs that month, or 4.29 runs per game. In August, the White Sox pitchers have already allowed 92 runs in 18 games, or 5.11 runs per game. Sean Burke and Jonathan Cannon have been optioned. The bullpen, as Jim mentioned, got hit hard by Atlanta this week. I was a little worried a couple weeks ago, Jim, about the pitching depth. Now I'm very worried that the White Sox don't have enough arms to just get through the rest of the season. I think we were hopeful back in April that maybe Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith would pitch well enough and have enough innings where we could see them for an inning or two in September. That's not going to happen. Instead, they're going to the Arizona Fall League. And this 10-game homestand is followed by a 7-game road trip. Jim, the White Sox play 17 straight days. So this is where I'm concerned. Like, this issue as far as exhaustion when it comes to pitching can compound. And I hope that the White Sox offense can average 7 runs a game, because that's what they may need to do just to pull out some wins this upcoming homestand against the Twins, Royals, and New York Yankees. Is there anyone in Charlotte or Birmingham that the White Sox can call up right now to help them through, to get through the rest of the season?
Yeah, they have some options. I would say no good candidates to provide bulk in any way. Like, I think spot starts would be harder to find. Like Duncan David is somebody who requires Rule 5 protection. He was just acquired in the Adrian Hauser trade. If they want to protect him, he's still feeling it out at AAA. But, if the White Sox were going to protect him anyway, they could put him on the 40-man roster, call him up to absorb a game, see if he could throw 5 innings or 4 or 3 and survive a day there. Same thing with Ben Peoples, the other pitcher acquired, although they're not pitching particularly well. So it'd be more of a case of, are they worried about losing in the Rule 5 draft right now? I would say probably not.
I was going to ask like how they were doing in Charlotte, but to your point, if they're not pitching,
it's a mixed bag. Yeah. It's like a mixed bag. Yeah. So it's like not still, and Charlotte's actually coming here in Nashville next week. So that'll be my chance to talk to Scott Aldred and just try to get a read on these guys before September call-ups happen. Among the more obvious candidates, Peyton Pallette, he would be somebody who requires Rule 5 protection after the season. So like just get a head start on him because he's going to be protected. You have Zach Franklin, who's a senior signing, 10th round pick out of Mizzou, MIZ. He's been pitching really well. He's a little bit of like a one-trick pony in a way. Like he's just got a really good be a riding fastball. Like doesn't jump off the page in terms of like velocity, like 95, 96, but just he throws it 2/3 of the time and he's not getting punished for it in Charlotte either. Like he's pitched great in Birmingham and made the transition to Charlotte. So he's somebody who could get that look. He's already, let's see how old he is because he was a super senior signing. He is 26 years old already. Like he's only been pro for 3 years, but he just got a really late start to pro baseball. So he's there. You have Jairo Iriarte, who's already on the 40-man roster, hasn't been used, but he's been off and on this year. He's somebody still who could provide an option. They've already used an option for him. If they need to buy a day, sure, call him up, see what it looks like. If he gets roughed up, then they can put him on the IL, just like they did with Peguero and White. That seems to be the move right now.
To your point, like August 18th, they optioned Sean Burke for Owen White. August 19th, they sent Owen White to the IL. Call up Elvis Peguero. August 20th, Peguero goes to the IL. Winkleman Gonzalez is back. So Winkleman, hold on, bud. Don't go in the IL.
Yeah,
it's
like Final Destination. Just it's everybody gets picked off, and you're like, how am I going to die? I'm looking in Birmingham too. Like Tanner McDougal. He's pitching on a 3-inning limit right now. So if they really like the cut of his jib, and I believe he would have to be Rule 5 protected. He could maybe be called up because he was drafted before the 2021. COVID. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So he would have to be protected from the Rule 5 draft. So he could be called up to throw 2 or 3 innings, finish his program with the White Sox if they wanted to just get a look. Doesn't cost an option, even if he is going to return to Birmingham or Charlotte next year. Tyler Schweitzer is pitching his butt off in Birmingham. Hasn't been scored upon in 30. Hasn't given up an earned run in 32 2/3 innings. Gave up 1 unearned run in the first game of the season. Otherwise, he hasn't been scored upon. Got waxed in Charlotte. Got really roughed up. You could theoretically just take a chance on him, see like, is that just Truist Field messing with him? He's got a 4-pitch mix. All the pitches are kind of average, but you could see him squeezing out like a decent bulk outing for the White Sox in the right park or against the right opponent. So maybe he's somebody who could work if they wanted to protect him. But like the Charlotte Birmingham divide there makes it a little bit muddy. But they have enough guys who can just try throwing starts or try throwing outings, be shuffled in and out of the bullpen. Nobody who's going to be like there aren't any Grant Taylors. Maybe Palett's the closest thing, but no Grant Taylors in terms of like, this guy has a major league arm and major league stuff. It's just a matter of repeating it. Nobody on that level of must watch. It's all going to be hope he works, or hope it's a smooth transition. Some of these guys might be 2 or 3 times before they stick, or low leverage before they might stick, but at least options to get them through. No guaranteed options in terms of making them more watchable.
It's just, you can't throw a Tyler Alexander every game. Will Venable has to be more cautious, I guess. Like, I know Alexander, he loves going to Alexander for like, hey, I need 3 to 4 innings. Can you give me 3 to 4? Gilbert maybe does that as well. Mike Vassell can maybe do that for you. It's just 17 consecutive days with a game.
Yeah.
And that's a lot. And when you're already running on fumes, it's nice to have an off day on Thursday to kind of reset, but you don't know where everybody is injury-wise or what's been nagging on them. The offense has to be good. Like, you are rooting for fun bad for the White Sox. We are talking like late 1990s White Sox teams. Like, come in, let's go, guys. We need 6 runs today to have a chance. And against Atlanta, I mean, like I mentioned, 23 runs in back-to-back games. They don't go 2-0. They go 1-1. But it may need to be that type of offense output in this upcoming homestand in order for the White Sox to win a game.
And it's a homestand too. That's the thing. Like, they have to pitch 9 innings. Like, that was the one appealing thing about their meltdown on Tuesday was that it happened in 2 innings to where they didn't have to try to cobble together a third based on who is left. That's the one advantage of losing on the road or collapsing on the road is only 8 innings. And, the position player option is not available to them because they're playing these 1-run games. So they can't just try to throw ephesus for an inning to get through it. They do have to use real pitchers, and they are 9-29 in 1-run games. So
Yeah, it's
that seems
good.
like it's sticking with them through the whole year. And just right now, especially Tuesday, just taking a different shape of getting to 1 run. Maybe the better. It's hard to say. Like, what's the best way of losing game 1 run? Is it scoring a ton of runs and being really cool on that side, or where like Kyle Teal's homering and
Yeah.
Lenine Sosa is still raking and Brooks Baldwin has some life in him. Like, that's not bad. Like, it's half of it. Like, I felt like if this continues, like writing recaps for each facet of the game, like just have the headline be White Sox 10, and then just that's the headline, and then just writing about all of the feats of the hitting, and then have a
Yeah.
separate recap Braves 11, and then just detail what happened there, just so you don't contaminate it. Just have separate bins for each, so we pass the food inspection, that we're not mixing raw chicken with the produce.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it feels like right now, trying to frame this team and talk about the good things without also having to acknowledge the horrible things right around the corner.
Yeah, at this stage, I'm rooting for the 10-9 games for the White Sox because I just don't think they have the arms. I mean, they did play a 1-0 game. They lost that game. Martin Perez pitched really well for the White Sox. That's a good sign. And we'll preview the upcoming pitching problems for the White Sox in a moment as they take on the Minnesota Twins. But this is my concern. If somebody stumbles in the first 3 innings and they give up like 5 runs, but they're only at 60 pitches, Jim, there's a part of me, like Aaron Savali, for example. Savali gives up 5 runs in the first 3 innings, but he's only at 60 pitches. I think Will Venables got to push Savali to 100. I think you got to, even though it's not effective. You're at the stage of the season where it's like, just get through it and keep pushing him out there. So what we're watching for as White Sox fans is, let's go offense, keep hitting rookies, like keep padding up your season numbers. That's exciting. And that could fuel some optimism, but we knew before the season pitching depth was an issue with all the injuries, and now it's really rearing its head late in the season.
Yeah, I just had one thought flash before my eyes too, thinking about like Aaron Savali. He's a veteran, no injury concerns, so yeah, you can push him. That's kind of why he's around, to be able to be pushed, and not having to push like a Davis Martin or a Sean Burke when he comes back, or like Shane Smith, an arm you care about developing, for 2 to 3 years. So that's why he's there. And that brought to mind just like Mike Clevenger still around. If we're talking about guys who are in Charlotte, could be called up, like, hey, throw 95 pitches over 3 innings. We don't care. And then like a DFA the next day. Like that would be, I think, the life cycle of Clevenger if the White Sox called upon him to just cross a day off the calendar.
Have him start against the Yankees. Save that for the Yankees when they come to town next weekend. Not on Sox Machine Sweet Night, though. Not Friday night, August 29th. Any other game but that one, I'm okay with. He can face Aaron Judge. That's fine with me. For the White Sox in the last 7 days, hitting wise, of who is hot, it's Lenine Sosa's world, and we're all living in it. 3 homers in his last 7 days. That covers 6 games for Sosa with 7 RBIs. Brooks Baldwin, your guy, Jim, 7 for 13 on a little hot streak. Sneaky power. He's got 1 home run during his stretch.
Knocked Spencer Strider out of the rotation.
Did he?
Yeah, they've, or at least they've bumped Strider out and they've rearranged the rotation so he's not starting the next series. And Brooks Baldwin, opposite field homer, will do that, apparently.
I guess so. Spencer doesn't look the same, and that's a bit sad. This offseason will be pretty important for him to get back on track.
Yeah, that
maybe
was
he's a project that the White Sox go after.
Yeah, I was listening to Len Casper and Darren Jackson, and Len was saying, and DJ was concurring, that he looked frustrated before the game got away from him. Like the contact he was giving up was just like he was shaking his head. He was just, the body language did not look relaxed. And then I guess if the White Sox just needed one turn through the lineup to draw a beat on him, and then we're smoking him all around the field, then and that's good foreshadowing there by Len.
Yeah. Miguel Vargas is 8 for 25. Kyle Teal, he's starting to show some power. 2 home runs, 5 RBIs in its last 7 days. And Andrew Benintendi warming up a little bit. Just like last year, he's 6 for his last 21. So hopefully the White Sox offense continues to hit. Going into this weekend, as the Minnesota Twins visit the Chicago White Sox, the Twins this year are 58-69. They're fourth place in the American League Central. They're 17 games back of Detroit. They've lost their last 3 games. They are 2-8 in their last 10. Not a good road team. The Minnesota Twins are 25-38 this year on the road. Season series, the Twins do lead the White Sox 4-2. Your pitching probables for this series. Friday night is Elvis night. First pitch is at 6:40 p.m. Central Time. Zebby Matthews, a right-handed pitcher for the Minnesota Twins, has been very good for the Minnesota Twins, especially in August. He'll take the ball for the Twins against Aaron Savali. Saturday night, 6:10 p.m. Central Time. This is your 1980 sweater vest giveaway. It's also Notre Dame night. To be determined for the Minnesota Twins against the Dart Davis Martin, which Davis was excellent against Kansas City in his last outing. And on Sunday at 1:10 p.m. Central Time, one of my favorite bobblehead giveaways of the season. Jim, it is the Ken Griffey Jr. White Sox bobblehead game. First 7,500 fans will get that one. Yoendris Gomez will take the ball for the White Sox against to be determined for the Minnesota Twins. So the Twins on the pitching front are also a little bit struggling. But what I wanted to talk about with this specific series and with the news that the Pollitt family, Jim, they're going to keep the team. They could not find a buyer in January. Even at the winter meetings, there was a lot of confidence, even speaking with the Athletics' Dan Hayes, that Justin Ishbia was going to buy the Minnesota Twins, backed out, of course, and now is on track to be the next owner of the Chicago White Sox. The news that the Pollitt family is keeping the team has upset a lot, even in Twins media. What Aaron Gleeman, who does an excellent job and has done an excellent job with Gleeman and the Geek Twins podcast for many years. It's
longer
upset
than we've
a lot
been
of,
doing it.
Yeah, it's upset a lot of Twins fans. And everyone also knows the financial trouble the Minnesota Twins are currently in. The debt is excessive. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. They don't have a local TV deal. They may get help with this new reconstruction of the ESPN app and ESPN looking to buy MLB.TV, but we're still waiting for final details of what is all involved in that new television deal between Major League Baseball and ESPN. With all that said, the Twins right now are 13 games better than the Chicago White Sox. So, Jim, let's look ahead for a moment, because the White Sox and Twins, fierce American League Central rivals, and we're hoping that the White Sox are on the up and up, but there's so much confusion that's going on in Minneapolis and St. Paul about the Twins. Who has the better 3-year outlook right now? The Minnesota Twins or the Chicago White Sox?
I think on the field, it's the Twins. I think they have a higher floor. Their farm system is better. Luke Keeschel right now is doing a great job of making that transition from AAA to the majors. Like, he's been one reason to watch them. They've put out a better product. Like the worst product is not anything close to the White Sox worst product. So I would figure that would go on to a certain extent, even if they're like a 70-win team. Like the White Sox would love to be a 70-win team.
Yes.
So I think they have enough reinforcements coming up to where they're not going to be terrible. They're not going to be like White Sox bad or Rockies bad or Marlins bad of previous Marlins iterations. So like I would say the Twins on the field should be better. I think, if you're just talking about 3-year record. I think in terms of fundamentals, just kind of business fundamentals or things that inspire confidence in the fan base or the market or the city, I would imagine the White Sox have the better 3-year outlook just because Justin Ishbia is there. He's in the portfolio and he's not in the Twins portfolio. And the White Sox know it's just a matter of time. And like the White Sox are lucky in that regard, even though this is convoluted, this whole transition plan that they have. Like the Twins couldn't sell, the Angels couldn't sell, the Nationals couldn't sell. So many teams trying to sell and not finding buyers. And like the White Sox found one, and just gonna take some time to do it. But like he's in it to win it, and they have announced the deal and everything like that. So they have that. They have a network that they own that's fully distributed, even if it's on the highest tier now. And the Cubs are moving the highest tier too. That's just how business is going to be now. They got away with the sweetheart cable deal for a couple decades, and that ran out. Jerry Reinsdorf talked about how they're getting away with it. Now they're not getting away with it. So sure, like that's a new way of doing it. But like so many teams would love to have what the White Sox have, I think, in terms of CHSN and just distribution and owning it, everything like that, even though it's, they just picked the worst time in their franchise trajectory to launch a new network. I think if they're like launching it after like an 83 win season, sure, it'd be a lot better. Ratings would be better, everything like that. Just, launching it while they're having the worst product or losing this product in Major League history. Hard to swallow. So I think with that in mind, I can see there being like momentum and a sense that things will be better. We'll see what happens with the stadium. That's another thing that will be worth watching.
Yeah.
But enough things there, I think, in the background to keep fans invested, or at least keep them watching from afar, keeping one eye on things, like monitoring how they're doing. With the Twins, just reading the coverage, not only the Athletics coverage with Dan and Aaron, but also Twins Daily, which is I think their Sox Machine equivalent in terms of like how venerable it's been and how they've covered it daily for more than a decade now. They're bummed out. Everybody is bummed out, and their attendance has already dropped a couple thousand this year, and with Pollad staying in. Is that attendance going to plummet further? I would imagine so. Like if they sold off, if they're not going to be adding over the winter, and they sure didn't add even when they could have added theoretically after they won their first postseason game in forever. Like they didn't add then. They're probably not going to add now. So I could just see Twins fans being severely jaded, and even like a decent product not being enough to lure them back into Target Field the way that they were drawing before, and their TV deal still stinks. So I could just see inertia just being really difficult to reverse there. And that's why I think like this could be pretty devastating. Like they're going to pay down the debt. Sure, that's what it sounds like they're going to do with these two outside groups they're coming in to invest, but like there's no controlling interest the way there is with the Reinsdorf to Ishbia transition. So like where's the upside? Where's the sunshine, it's darkest before dawn, like, pretty dark. When's dawn coming? And I think like a lot of Twins fans from reading and listening, don't see that dawn coming. And that's, I think, really tough to navigate. And I think it could be another example. I've talked about it with the White Sox and the fears of relocation. And now I say, look at Cleveland, look at what they're drawing, no matter how good they've been. If the White Sox were as good as the Guardians have been, they'd be drawing 2.5 million easy. Yeah. The Guardians don't get to 2 million. With the Twins, like this could be another thing where just like great stadium, great location, easy to get to, own the whole geographic footprint. Watch what they draw, watch what they get in terms of eyes, and just say like, nope, even being the second team in Chicago is a pretty healthy market to stay in. When you see what happens when a White Sox looking ownership or a White Sox looking success rate takes over in a market that isn't teeming with people, isn't teeming with natural strength. You could see like same kind of thing to where like, there might be more vulnerable markets or more markets that we took for granted that are not as fundamentally strong as even being the second team in Chicago.
For me, with this particular question, like to your point, the Twins have the stronger farm system right now. According to MLB.com, after refreshing and shuffling the top 100 prospects after the MLB draft and the trade deadline, our friends, of course, Jim Callis and Jonathan Mayo over at MLB.com ranked the Twins second best farm system behind the Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, when you look at their farm system, it is position player heavy. They did acquire Mick Abel from the Philadelphia Phillies this trade deadline. And they still got Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez. Now, Lopez is rehabbing from his shoulder injury, but if he's back to full strength, when you got Joe Ryan pitching the way that he has, and we know Pablo Lopez is a very good starting pitcher, I'm with you, Jim. Like in 2026, the Minnesota Twins should still be better than the Chicago White Sox on paper. But
unless they trade them.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
What happens if we attend the winter meetings in Orlando, Jim, and it's the Garrett Crochet treatment of Joe Ryan because he's in arbitration? Pablo Lopez is still owed $21.75 million in 2026. And I think he may even have another year in 2027. What if there is demand from ownership to shrink the debt? You got to trade or find someone for Pablo Lopez. I don't know how many teams would trade for a Pablo Lopez coming off a shoulder injury. That's kind of concerning. They may have to wait until the trade deadline to do that. That's the unknown. There's so much unknown with the Minnesota Twins that I feel like 3 years from now, yes, the White Sox would be leapfrogging the Minnesota Twins. It may not happen in 2026, and we'll see with the upcoming lockout between Major League Baseball and the Players Association, just how many games they play in 2027. But maybe that's the shift between the White Sox and the Twins. I don't know about Detroit in the next 3 years and where they're going to be. They're having a great 2-year run. Kansas City's got Bobby Witt Jr., and they continue to press the right buttons, at least in the last couple of seasons, to be 500 or a little bit better. Cleveland is Cleveland. But it's the Minnesota Twins now in the American League Central. If we're trying to look at the pecking order of which teams the White Sox can start leapfrogging, naturally right now the Twins are next because they're the only team ahead of the White Sox in the American League Central standings. And things have gotten so dire. And I love the analogy, darkest before dawn. It's pretty dark right now in Minneapolis. And that is a fan base that just doesn't see a path forward, doesn't see a lot of hope. Can the White Sox take advantage of that sooner than later? I don't know. But the Twins still have more talent on paper, to your point. But I still like the White Sox future outlook in the next 3 seasons better than the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, and like the Twins, like the poll ads have been sneaky bad in terms of ownership. Like Reinsdorf has drawn a lot more attention for just how uninspiring he is as a steward of a franchise. But like the poll ads, like
almost lost their team.
Well, they wanted to lose a team. They wanted to sell to the guy who owned the Charlotte Knights for decades. Like Don Beaver owned the Charlotte Knights until he started selling to Diamond Baseball Holdings. But like he owns the Charlotte Knights because he missed out opportunity to buy the Twins and move them to Charlotte. He wanted to do that. The voters wouldn't support a new stadium. So like they tried that in the 80s, didn't work. They tried to contract the team in the 90s. That didn't work. So like they haven't wanted to own the Twins and multiple times over this tenure, and they can't get rid of them for one reason or another, or their plans get foiled or what have you. So it's just like, what's worse, like having a Jerry Reinsdorf who wants to own the team, likes owning the team, likes being somebody who's important in baseball circles, but just doesn't know how to do it. And you're just at the mercy of an out of touch guy's hobby, which is what White Sox fans are. But like, at least he's invested, just in terms of personally. I'm not sure about emotionally. I don't know about his range of emotions. I don't know if that means much emotionally, but like wants to be there, cares to a certain degree, versus like an ownership that does a better job of picking a front office that can build a contender, but also isn't supporting it, has one foot out the door, and just kind of doesn't care if it dies on the vine. What's worse? And for a while, you'd say Reinsdorf because like the Falvey Levine front office could kind of run itself. But now that that's worn off, and like it seems like with that front office, they're just around. Like it reminds me of Kenny Williams or Rick Hahn, like should be fired. Not just because like not fired out with extreme prejudice, not for punitive reasons, but just because like if your vision doesn't work over 5 years, like get a new vision, get a new person running it. Like same thing with like Kenny Williams, his first 5 years, they won a World Series. Great. gets another 5 years. That didn't work. Okay. Give it to somebody else. Rick Hahn comes aboard. His 5-year vision didn't work. Okay, fire him. Or move on to somebody else. Like that's how it should work. But in this case, like you have like Falvey's just like good enough to keep running the team, but running out of ideas there and not problem solving with the problems that the poll ads are thrusting upon him. So yeah, it just seems very uninspired, both at the ownership level and the front office level, and just kind of just keep running it on autopilot, even though, or it's almost like I made this analogy with the White Sox, but just like their firmware can't be updated anymore. Like they can't update it anymore. It's like they've been no longer supported. And so how long can you keep using it? Well, it still works. Yeah, some of the functions don't work, but theoretically can still do a few things that keep it running. Like, all right, keep going. If it bricks, then we'll have to get something new. But until then, until the blue screen of death or the black screen of death shows up, just keep using it. Okay. And we've seen how that works.
So Joe Polid is the one that's the chair of the Minnesota Twins. He's our age, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's the next generation.
Yeah, it's tough for Twins fans. I know that the chief rival and there's animosity between White Sox and Twins, but not like this. You don't want. There's so much bad ownership right now in Major League Baseball. Like, and to your point, in the past, they flirted with the idea of not having the Minnesota Twins. Like, you don't want that to happen because we're seeing the mess right now with the Athletics and the upcoming mess with the Rays. You just can't have this. It's just too much turmoil right now within ownership ranks for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, no, it's a case where it's like not if the Twins were the only team failing, like ha ha ha,
yeah,
very enjoyable,
but it's not.
Yeah, it's a case where you have the Twins, you have I think the White Sox are improving, but the White Sox have been in the bucket of just like fans hate the ownership. Yeah. You have Marlins, you have the Rockies, you have the A's. Rays might be getting better, but until that officially turns over, they're still on the block. The Angels have been wanting to sell. So like you have like 25% of the teams that do not have ownership that looks like it wants to be owning a team. And that's not good. And they want to expand to 2 teams, even though they have like, it's a really fraught time, I think, in Major League Baseball business. And that's why I think this, we've been talking about the lockout that's coming, like, could be lengthy because I think a lot of owners want to try to, or like they don't care about the on-field product. So like, do they even care if the on-field product is on the field? Hard to say.
Yeah,
I think it's easy to be skeptical or cynical.
I've written about realignment. I think anyone that has blogged about the game of baseball, especially Major League Baseball, the last decade, we've all written about realignment because it's a little fun exercise to shuffle up the divisions. But out of the list of priorities between the owners of Major League Baseball, and after that argument and war, negotiating things with the Players Association, expansion and division realignment is like item number 12 on the list. They got 11 things they got to figure out before they even get to expansion. If nobody wants to buy an existing team, Jim, who is trying to drum up $2 billion right now? Like, I don't know. I haven't heard anything from Nashville in a while. Nope. Portland would love to have a team, but again, their price tag is $2 billion. You can buy the Minnesota Twins for less than that if you want to be an MLB owner right now. So who is right now knocking on the door in Major League Baseball for an expansion team to pay that expansion fee of $2 billion, Rob? Like, I just don't know.
Especially, and I guess what you would say is like, do you want Manfred talking about the lockout in a really blasé and cynical fashion that just turns off everybody, or would you rather I'm talking about pipe dreams on national television? I guess like it's better.
Pipe dreams.
Yeah. I think it's better for the league that he talks about that versus just talks about how much a lockout could be beneficial towards league health, which is just, real awful stuff. But yeah, it's the fundamentals I think are not good for the league right now. And I think it was LA Times, Bill Shaken was saying that this is why, when you look at what basketball teams are selling for, they have controlled costs when it comes to players.
Yes.
This is why, they might be taking teams off the block to see if they can hammer out a salary cap, like a hard cap on payrolls, to where, like, all of a sudden now baseball teams are worth 2.2 billion, 2.5 billion, because of just how they'll be able to flatten costs for decades. Like, that's why I think, and as long as they're not going to open the books, and as long as Major League Baseball teams are getting income streams from things not related to baseball, the union has every reason to fight that salary cap. So it's going to be brutal. And
Yes.
we're going to have to think about alternate programming for Sox Machine I'm preparing for months.
Yeah, the World Baseball Classic, they should delay it. Just to buy us a month. No, I mean, like, to that point, like the whole Rob. Yes, to the pipe dream. Rob, just talk about pipe dreams right now. And, for the Minnesota Twins, the fact that they couldn't find a buyer and they're holding on to the team, I'm with you. The salary cap's not going to happen. But even like the other sports financial publications out there, like the Chicago Bears are worth way more than the White Sox and Cubs combined. Like, I still think the White Sox and Cubs, if you put them together, are still a couple $1 billion short of the Chicago Bears when it comes to franchise valuations. And I know the Bulls are second. Like, the Bulls are worth way more to Jerry Reinsdorf. And that's why the Reinsdorf family is going to keep the Chicago Bulls than the Chicago White Sox are.
And
So,
investing
yeah.
in the West Loop too.
Yeah, so I know Rob wants to paint this picture about Major League Baseball's doing better, but not even remotely close to the same progress or ground being made up like the NBA and the NFL. Like, the NFL is running laps around everyone else, but the NBA is way ahead of Major League Baseball. Like, not that long ago, it was clear that NFL had surpassed Major League Baseball as far as the professional sports leagues in the United States of America. I feel like the NBA has surpassed Major League Baseball, Jim, and now
Yeah.
MLB is third.
NBA is weird just because, like, I think locally, or in terms of like TV ratings, it might not compare, but just globally is
Yeah.
where it has the advantage.
But I think the valuations, though, on average, an NBA
Yeah.
team is
Oh,
worth
yeah.
more than an MLB team.
Yeah, and I think it's partially because of the global aspect of it is just it's impressive, the reach of good NBA teams, NBA stars. And
Yeah.
so, like, Major League Baseball is having a hard time getting a nationwide grip on its players, a nationwide recognition. So yeah, I think that's why NBA teams, like, I'm surprised by how much they go for, but yeah, when you add in just what they can get from overseas, it does make them a little bit more appealing.
Yeah. Still shocking that the Minnesota Twins couldn't find a buyer, but we'll see what happens over the
Yeah.
weekend.
Not so shocking when $400 million of debt.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Like, oh, once they talk about, like, oh, they have some debt, and like, oh, 400 million, that's like a quarter of the franchise value. Just like, yeah, I can see that being like not a good deal.
No. We'll see how this weekend goes. We'll see how the next 3 years go. But let us know in the comments section or hit us up on social media. Who do you think has the better 3-year outlook, the Minnesota Twins or the Chicago White Sox? We'll conclude this podcast episode because, again, we are inching closer to the postseason. There's 35 games left to go for the Chicago White Sox, but around Major League Baseball, the Chicago Cubs won their 5-game series against the Brewers. They went 3-2 against the Brewers, but there's still a pretty significant gap between the Cubs and Brewers. But this weekend, you got the Dodgers and Padres again, but this time in San Diego. But I want to draw your attention to Detroit. The Kansas City Royals are just 2 games back of the final American League wildcard spot. The Royals are 8-2. It helps that they swept the White Sox at Kauffman Stadium earlier this week. And they took over Cleveland for second place in the American League Central. 3 games in Detroit. They're not close enough to challenge the Tigers. They're still 9.5 games back of Detroit in the standings. But now that they're 2 games back of the final wildcard spot, and that's going to be a battle in the American League East between Toronto, New York, and Boston, are you considering the Royals a true playoff contender, Jim?
Not, or I guess like in a 6-team postseason, yes. In terms of like in the previous 4-team postseason, like which I consider to be more of like that includes all good teams. That includes all contenders. Like when the top 4 teams made it, like unless you had a really weird division that like were 84 games enough to win a division, most of the time quality teams coming out of that. Like I think they're in this case of just like they could sneak in, but still not all that impressed. Like it does help when like Pasquantino's hitting. Like I think he makes a big difference in terms of like Bobby Witt Jr. is great. Michael Garcia has been a good running mate, but they need that third bat. And it seems like, Sal Perez it's admirable what he does with how loose his plate approach is, but like you can't count that for like moving the lineup. Like he's somebody who like you can't build the entire team out of Sal Perez. They need just somebody else who can like if he's your 4th best bats or like your 2nd best power hitter, like not bad. But like when he's like your 2nd best or 3rd best, like that's when it gets dicey, a guy who can strike out as easily as he does. So I think like Pasquantino stepping up at this juncture makes them more interesting, makes their lineup deeper. But I still just, it feels a little bit flimsy. It feels like a little bit like they properly use the White Sox as a springboard. Like that's what teams in the Royals position should be doing. Just beating up on the bums and getting hot. And that's what they did. So like no disrespect in that regard, but just still feels a little bit thin. I do think that we've seen enough of like Bobby Witt Jr. being on the team to where like he raises the floor significantly. Yes. And they've had enough good pitching, whether it's like holding on to Seth Lugo, Noah Cameron being good, like Cole Reagan's been, so like they've been able to develop pitchers. Like they have a real good back end in the bullpen right now. So they have enough going on the run prevention side to where their floor is pretty high. Just a matter of can they score enough runs? And I think like I would say like if Pasquantino stays hot the rest of the year and like this is his new talent level, like getting to be somebody who can slug a 500, maybe. If he's somebody who will recede and they're back to what their offense was, not so much.
Yeah, so Boston, Seattle, Kansas City, 2 of those 3 are going to make the postseason, in my opinion. I think Texas is too far away right now. And I like Kansas City more than Cleveland at this stage. But 2 of those 3, Boston, Seattle, Kansas City, pick 2.
Gonna go Boston and Seattle. I think right now you're seeing like the Royals playing their best baseball while the Mariners are playing their worst. And I always feel a little bit iffy trusting Seattle because just things go wrong there. Yeah, things go wrong there. But that's where I'm leaning right now. I mean, I was already getting worried about the Yankees, and now they're fine. Like they look like they're okay. I think the talent level in terms of like getting Aaron Judge back, like that, as long as he's healthy and producing, they're cut above the others. So yeah, I counted them out. So to count the Mariners out when they're playing their worst, or say like they can be usurped, not there yet. But a couple weeks from now, I think that's when I'll reevaluate.
I wouldn't be surprised when we record 2 podcasts from now, recapping the White Sox Royals series, Jim, if Kansas City has tied Seattle for that final American League wildcard spot. But I still think Boston and Seattle are going to outlast Kansas City. Again, let us know who you think is going to be. There's a real race now for the 5th and 6th seeds in the American League wildcard, and the White Sox could be a factor because they have another series against Kansas City. They still have all 7 games remaining against the New York Yankees to end the season. The Yankees are still, there's some gap between the Blue Jays and Yankees, but the Yankees could use some softer opponents to beat up on in the final 35 games of the season to maybe catch up to Toronto or improve as far as their seeding. But yeah, this is a big homestand for the White Sox. The final 10-game homestand of the season starts this weekend. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. If you just discovered the Sox Machine Podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You could also listen and watch our videos on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine. Follow us on social media. I mentioned James was not available to join this podcast, but he will be back covering the next 10 games for us on SoxMachine.com, being at the stadium. Follow him at JR Fegan. You could, of course, follow Sox Machine on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. If you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox and Major League Baseball, sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at SoxMachine.com. We just had a monthly Zoom call with our 25 WAR and higher tier members. Got some great feedback from that Zoom call. It gives them an opportunity to talk to me, Jim, and James. James was down in Arizona
James did most of the talking because of his location. Like, he had a lot to explain about how the Bridge League worked, how hot it was.
Players are having to go to the players have to go to the hospital because of heat exhaustion, but they're getting additional insight from those perks of being a Sox Machine subscriber. We even have some spots available in our Veterans Committee, which if you want to be in the group chat, which James was texting us of what he was seeing today down in Arizona, those poor teenagers dealing with 110-degree heat. And he'll write up more about it on SoxMachine.com. But if you want additional insight, if you want the gossip and the rumors, we got a couple spots available in our Veterans Committee. Again, monthly plans start at $5. That gets you the ad-free version of the podcast on the website. If you haven't signed up, sign up today at SoxMachine.com. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.